Mm, So before I start off, I just wanted to ask this question to all of you. Is there anyone here who has never experienced anxiety? Okay. And if there's someone, then you're in the wrong session. All of us have been anxious, right? We continue to be anxious, and we will continue to be in the future too. But we are in various stages of managing that. um, in essence, there's a universality of about anxiety, and it is present all the time. None of us is bereft of it or can escape from it. Um, it is inalienable from our being. They say that to live is to live anxiously. Anxiety can only be eliminated once we are dead. So once we accept this, that itself reduces our worry about anxiety to a large extent. Let's open up this topic a little more and see where we go with it. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions as we go along. Please feel free to add that onto the chat, or keep them sequenced in your mind, and we can open the session for discussions. So let's go to the next slide, which talks about some data on numbers. Poor mental health cost UK employers almost 51 billion pounds, as per research by Deloitte for 23-24. And it has actually increased from 45 billion in 2019, which is almost, say, possibly 1,500 pounds for every single employee. That's quite a bit, right? That an organization puts in. And almost 24 billion of this is the cost of presenteeism. Now, what is presenteeism? It means reduced productivity when employees come into work and are not fully engaged, or they perform at lower levels as a result of ill health. So that's almost 50% of this 51 billion, which is again quite a bit to of revenue, as of investment that goes into this. If we look at the chart on the side, you'll see that the most common forms of mental illness are listed, and out of which almost 20%, 19 to 20%, is anxiety, or disorders due to anxiety. And that's point to note over here. Anxiety. What is anxiety? So it's only a terminology given to a certain feeling, state, and symptoms. It is that dread which seems to be everywhere, right? We feel that there's something enveloping us, but we are not able to pinpoint exactly where it's coming from. It's everywhere, yet it's nowhere. It's a vague fear where you can't identify a focal point, and hence you can't evade anxiety because one does not know what to evade, right? Um, Before we go on to further explaining or understanding anxiety, what are some of the mental symptoms of anxiety that you have experienced? Put that in the chat. So I can start off by suggesting racing thoughts, uncontrollable overthinking. Right? These are some mental symptoms. Put down what you have experienced. And Kevin, I would like you to share them.
Yep. So we have lack of sleep at the moment is
Yeah.
suggesting. Scattered thoughts, brain fog,
Yeah.
continuous worry.
Yes.
We're waiting. There's still some typing taking place.
Okay.
Loss of appetite,
Oh,
not feeling up to the task. So I guess getting imposter syndrome in there.
yeah.
Butterflies in the stomach, racing heart, overwhelmed, tears. So
Yeah.
actual.
Yeah. Not able to manage, not able to understand what's happening, and therefore reacting with tears or with sometimes people feel dissociated with the situation. So you actually feel you're not connected to your body, and like you're watching things happen around you without feeling it because you've become numb to it to a large extent. Um, and there's panic sometimes, there's heightened alertness. You are alert to every sound that is around you. So these are some of the mental symptoms of anxiety. What are some of the physical symptoms of anxiety that I've experienced? Please share that. I can start off by suggesting sweating, uh, heavy and fast breathing. That's a physical symptom.
Yeah, so we have shaking, lightheadedness, churning
Yeah.
stomach, um, holding breath. Some of my little brother used to have anxiety, and he would have like physical panic attacks
Yeah.
as a result.
Yeah.
Teeth grinding.
Yeah, teeth grinding at night. I have had people being recommended to put mouth guards to prevent the teeth from grinding. Yeah. Changes in appetite, stomach aches, sometimes dry mouth, and hair loss. That's also a symptom of anxiety. Now, let me contrast. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let me contrast anxiety with fear. Fear focuses on some known sources, but anxiety is an uneasiness that you feel about imagined future events. It has no concrete trigger or target. Two things occur in preserving anxiety. One is you speculate that the future is dangerous. And the second thing is that one's viewpoint that one is incapable of preparing or dealing with it. So these are two things that happen when you're anxious. Now, both of these are conjecture, right? There's a quote from Mark Twain, which you can read on the slide. And anxiety, what we do is we keep catastrophizing about our future and we burn the living daylights of our present. It's always about the future that we keep thinking, and future based on our past learning or our beliefs and our values from the past, our experiences of the past. But we are constantly anxious of the future. And so far, we have some rudimentary understanding of anxiety. Now, let me build some more building blocks to scaffold this further. Human beings generally love meaning creation, and we have a tendency to make sense of any situation by fitting it into a familiar explanatory framework. For example, you hear a strange noise and you think about some similar example or incident from the past, or some unusual facial expression. So you try to make meaning out of things. Imagine that you go to a small child and you touch his leg or his foot. He'll immediately look at your face, right? What you did needs more explanation to the child. And the child instinctively knows that the answer will appear on your face. So if you make a scary face, he will start crying. And if you smile, there's a possibility that he may smile. So even a small child is creating meaning to various actions. So keep that in mind. It's not just as we become an adult or as we understand things better that there is anxiety or the meaning creation. It starts from as young as a few months old after birth. Let me give you another example. How many of you have seen the movie The Sixth Sense? It may be this movie was released in '99, so maybe many of you haven't, but I'm sure there are a few of us who have seen this movie. It's a terrific movie if you haven't seen. In this movie, this boy, young boy, Cole, is depressed, and he tells Dr. Malcolm, who is Bruce Willis has played this character, who's a child psychologist, that he sees dead people, and it makes him feel terrified and distraught. Bruce is finding it hard to believe, and he tries to enter into the little boy's world, but he's unable to. At one point, he vexes his frustration on his voice recorder and says, probably the boy suffers from hallucination or delusions, and I'm not helping him. Finally, Dr. Malcolm hears a very old recording in which one of his patients says that he hears voices when he is left in a room. And Dr. Malcolm also hears these voices in the recording, and he concludes that it's possible for some dead people to actually talk with living people. Now, this is all hypothetical, but the reason I'm explaining this to you is that he goes to the boy and he tells him that instead of avoiding these dead people, who keep following him. Why don't you listen to these dead people and see what they want? And the boy starts healing. So, a meaning attached to an inexplicable experience in the boy's life was enough for him. He just wanted to understand why is that happening? What is happening? So, the moment he was told that, why don't you just listen what's happening? And probably you can, you'll understand the reason. And that helped. So, the power of fear diminishes once an explanation is attached to it. We as human beings desperately seek an explanatory framework. Scientists say that constant reaction to things beyond our control not only creates misery, but it also shortens our lives over here. So, chronic reactivity creates a stressful biochemical boomerang that weakens our immune system. And it's very important to realize that sometimes we are so used to being in a stressful situation or a constant state of anxiety that we don't recognize how much we are impairing our lives and our health and our lifespan too. So recognizing this, using tools to manage that is very important. However, when we are in anxious state, we are unable to explain it, right? It is just there. It's a sort of generalized anxiety, and we are seeking an explanation. We are even sometimes anxious about being anxious. And that's why we convert anxiety into fear. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, cleaning, constantly removing dust, rearranging the picture frames, as Monica and Friends series does it. What is happening here? The larger anxiety is not dealt with, and we convert it into localized fear. And what is the larger anxiety? Perhaps one needs to probably change the job, build more skill, create more savings, go back to one's roots to connect with a family, stop smoking. Perhaps one needs to spend more time with one's family, do more for the community. One needs to develop more loving romantic relationship with one's partner, improve communication. Maybe one needs to press forth into a divorce or just completely change one lines of business or work. There are so many different reasons that we are not ready to deal with, and we keep repressing or suppressing that. In this example, you can see in an OCD situation, she is vacuuming the vacuum cleaner, right? So it's about how to manage these larger anxieties. And they're difficult to deal with, right? As it needs drastic and massive actions. And these actions will take you to unfamiliar territories and make you have to explore the unknown. And it brings in even more anxieties. So instead of dealing with this, what we try to do is convert it into some kind of fear and then aim to conquer it and keeps creating these localized fears. Fears we can surmount as we know that it exists and we can define it, but anxiety cannot be tackled in the same way. It is an existential dread without specificity. Fear has an object. For example, when you hear people say, I'm afraid of the dark, darkness is the object of fear, right? In that case, I'm afraid of snakes, or I'm afraid of crowded places. So when I'm afraid of crowded places, I do not walk into those places in a space where there are lots of people, right? I step back from that. So people who are very anxious transfer their anxiety into external objects and they can now manipulate it like staying away from darkness or constantly cleaning. Um, in fear, we move away from things that we fear or even conquer it. But in anxiety, we cannot because that which makes us anxious cannot be specifically named. So you get up in the morning and it's just there around you. To understand anxiety, therefore, one has to understand moods because anxiety is a specific mood. This mood is disclosing something to us. Human beings always have a mood. They cannot be freed up of moods, right? It's a basic software that cannot be eradicated. The specific moods however, can be changed with awareness. But the fact that we have a mood is indisputable. Let me give you an example. You get up in the morning, there is a mood, right? Either it's a sad mood or bored or lazy or general disdain, or even enthusiastic and raring to go, excitement. This mood now creates a situation for us. And it is not the situation that creates a mood. Just understand this distinction. So it's the mood that creates a situation and not the situation that creates the mood. Now imagine that you're walking down a high street and you notice a friend of yours walking on the other side of the road. You wave to this friend, but this friend has seen and possibly continues walking without reacting. How did you feel? What are the thoughts that enter your mind? What would you do in such an instant? Put in some responses on the chat. Kevin, any responses?
Yeah, so I think we'd all probably agree with this. The feeling of rejection and questioning what has you done that
Yeah,
prompted that lack of response as opposed to what's wrong with that person. Um,
yeah,
just generally feeling concerned.
yeah,
As somebody has said, they would wonder what if all was well with the person, actually, whether they were okay, as opposed to
yeah,
seeing it as a personally negative thing.
yeah.
Um, and someone said that's obviously deal with this better than most of us. They said they would give the person the benefit of the doubt, but would potentially feel some fear of rejection.
Yeah, interesting responses, right? Sometimes the reaction is localized on you, as in you feel rejected, you have a concern. Sometimes you think about the other person. What? I hope everything is fine with the other person. Why did she not respond to me? Need to check with her probably later in the afternoon. Give her a call and find out. Again, it's the same situation, right? Same event, but different people react differently to that. We interpret based on how we felt at that time. And that's important to note. Our interpretations are often shaped by old habits of mind. Our interpretations influence how we feel and what we do. Even if we are unaware of our moment to moment thoughts, they influence our reactions. So, how do we feel at that point is how we react. If we had a beautiful day in the morning, or we had a beautiful first half before we met, we saw this person, we might interpret it in a different way than when we started off with a bad day, as we say. We might find ourselves feeling annoyed or anxious, snapping at a loved one, or hiding our emotions away because we have not noticed these thoughts and we cannot understand why this is happening. This in itself can be worrying, right? What is wrong with us? Why are we reacting like this? We keep asking these questions to ourselves. We don't tend to notice enjoyable experiences because we are so busy and lost in our thoughts. We go through life very mechanically. Have you seen when if you drive a car and you take the same route every day? Sometimes it's in a very automatic phase that we drive the car. We don't even notice things around us, excepting the fact that you have left your home and you've reached the place where you wanted to reach. So sometimes we're so lost in our thoughts. And becoming aware of our habitual thoughts can help us make sense of how we feel and allows us options of how we should respond. Right? We can regain our freedom if we simply acknowledge the actuality of the situation we find ourselves in without being hooked on to automatic tendencies to react or to fix things or to change things. Just noticing that situation has happened without reacting to it or without trying to fix or change it, that itself is a first step, right? Acknowledging it exists. There's nothing. They say life is empty and meaningless. It has only that meaning that you attribute to it. So the moment you accept the fact that things happen, right? That itself changes the way you start behaving towards it. There are things that are out of your control. It's okay, right? It happens. You will manage it better, but you don't need to try and find ways to judge or fix that. Let's do a small exercise now. Think of a pleasant experience that you had. You know, it could be earlier this morning, it could be yesterday, it could be earlier this week. What was the experience? Make a note of this in your devices. What were your moods and feelings? What thoughts crossed your mind? Take a few moments to write this down at your end, and then I'll open it up for you to share that. I'll give you an example. When I went for a walk in the garden nearby, and I stopped in the morning to hear the robins sing. It was beautiful to see the birds back again. Spring is here. I felt a sense of calmness and pleasure, and the feeling of grass and smell of grass. I don't yet have hay fever, so I'm okay about it. And it made me feel how lovely it is. The sun is out, you know, the days are getting longer, and I just felt nice being outside. So that's one example. Write down your thoughts of what was your experience. We go on to the next one, an unenjoyable experience chart, right? Think of a experience which didn't make you feel good about it. What was the experience? What were your moods and feelings? What thoughts crossed your mind? Same three questions, one for an enjoyable experience, one for an unenjoyable experience. Anyone ready to share? If you're ready, feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello. Yeah, I can share my enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
So sitting on the beach, watching my children play in the distance, which is probably a key part to that. But they were close with my husband, but I was there really at peace with the sea and just very much enjoying and seeing and feeling a lot of love, but feeling very peaceful at the same time.
Awesome. An unenjoyable experience?
So I get a lot of anxiety driving. So
Right.
when I'm driving, feeling worried, always trying to think ahead of like the turns that I'm going to take, the other traffic, like can I go, can I not? So that's where a lot of my anxiety presents itself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I'll go if you like.
Yes.
So
Jenny.
good one is being in the pub. I maybe should be ashamed to admit, but not. With one of my best friends who is loads of fun and feeling in a very happy mood, laughing, having loads of fun. And moments like that, I generally think about how I'm just in the moment and just happy to be in the present, which I find quite difficult often. I'm quite often elsewhere, past or future. And then the negative one kind of is recently I've had to do all this life admin stuff, which has all landed at once and which I've procrastinated about. So now I just have to deal with it. Some of it's financial. I have to make decisions about things that I don't know that much about. I don't have loads of time to find out about it. That makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel tired, just the thought of having to do it, which is connected because I'm not tired, you know, it's just part of it. And what I think about that and other tasks like that is I always feel stuck in the moment, like I'm just desperate to get to the other side of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's mine.
Yeah. Interesting, right? Noticing these things. It's just that, I mean, all of us, many of us procrastinate. We, if there's a deadline, we just work probably very close to the deadline and we are panicking and anxious about it because it's a mundane task and mundane tasks don't motivate you to do it, but you have to do it, right? And that's where the anxiety crops up. But noticing these things, it's very important to just be aware of it. Sometimes, you get anxious, but you don't realize that your body is reacting in a certain way because of that. So it's good. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll progress further. So imagine a parent-child relationship, right? Imagine the parent has had a terrible day at work and comes home. The parent is already in a foul mood, and even if his a teen has said something unpleasant or just ignored him, he will retaliate to the teen. The teen, unable to take it, will retort further, and the fight escalates. It eventuates into a potential catastrophe. Here is a parent's a priori mood that he walked into the house with that has created the situation for them. And it's not the situation that is creating the mood. Just make a note of this. It's not the fight with the teen that has changed the parent's mood. He has constituted this fight with his mood. Right? Now take another example. Suppose a parent had a fantastic day at work and he gets a lot of encouragement for what he did. He comes home, and even if his teen has done some egregious mistake, possibly scratched his car, he doesn't mind because he's in a very ebullient mood and he normalizes it, which then astounds the young teen, or the young person, as they're not used to this, and actually was preparing to get some arsenal from the armory to fight a potential war with the parent. But upon seeing the parent's calm mood, the young person instantly calms down. In fact, they may make an effort to make the parent happy by cooking his favorite dish, possibly. And therefore, now the parent's mood has created a new situation for them. So when we get up in the morning, it's very important to notice the mood because that is how your day will disclose or open out for you. Anxiety is one such mood, a mood that discloses to you that my world is dreadful, it is fearful, it's scary, I'm financially anxious, I have a health scare, I have a death anxiety, and so on, right? So noticing your mood when you wake up is very important because that that's how your day is going to pan out, and therefore you will find you will start attracting negative situations for yourself. So now this is not something airy fairy that I am talking about. It's not about you attracting, but it's about you noticing more of those situations and making them larger than the happier moments in that day. What do people generally get anxious about? It's about life, it's about relationships, finance, future, health, well-being, ambitions, death, isolation, loneliness, and so on and so forth. If you see on a philosophical scale, most of our anxieties are about our inability to be. And this is death anxiety, right? In death, we cannot be. The attempts to play safe, from refraining from your risky projects, or being in the same space, doing the same things, keep taking the path that others have tread upon. All these are to keep ourselves safe and stable. Right? We don't want to go out of our comfort zone into our stretch zone, try something new simply because we want to preserve ourselves on the stable path. And when we keep doing this, there will be suffering, right? If there is nothing, there will be fragility of the self. That is, eventually you'll fall ill. I am going to go back to another movie example over here. There's a scene in a movie, an old movie, where a middle-aged hero passes by a group of young women, and in doing so, he experiences the compulsion to gaze at the reflection of his face in a car window. He looks at his face and he feels sad by seeing what by what he sees. So he prods his skin, noting the obvious lines and blemishes which have marked the passage of time. And he says, "What is the matter with me?" He mumbles to himself. All of a sudden, I've grown old. And it's not just death that people are anxious about, right? They become anxious even with the realization as to how fragile our life is and that we are aging. Hence, the huge cosmetic surgery market, which is forecasted to reach almost 67 billion by 2026. We are constantly bombarded by media messages which want to make us look younger and keep us engaged in the belief that the more young we look, the less we are getting closer to death. And because our aging process signals to us our direction towards non-being, that is death eventually. Once we understand the fragility of existence, once we accept that death is inevitable, we are able to control anxiety, right? I mean, we deal with fragility in that sense. We sometimes people cocoon themselves into a regimented lifestyle. They get up in the morning, go to a run, go for a run, do the same things on a clockwork basis, which is bereft of novelty and surprise. But some may live with wild abandon, and they'll say, to hell with everything. I'm just going to live how it is. It depends on what philosophy you follow. The moment you're born, you're fit to die, is what philosophy says. Death can happen at any moment. Usually in today's lifestyle, you see many people living beyond 90. So you expect that to happen. But the pandemic has shown us otherwise, right? We know of very popular movie stars like Chadwick Boseman from Black Panther, who passed away at a very young age. There are many other musicians that you come across. And many of us go through life thinking that we are immortal. We make plans for meetings, holidays, celebrations, and then a sudden event occurs. We hear about a sudden disaster, an earthquake, thousands of ordinary lives being killed. And that moment brings anxiety to us. Like when our bodies become ill, the anxiety we feel is not just about our physical illness, it also signifies to us the unfinished projects. If I had 6 more months to live, I would spend more quality time with my family, with my parents, with my children, with my friends, with my neighbors. I'd be more compassionate. I'd probably contribute more in life. All these unfinished projects come into the forefront. In normal life, we constitute ourselves in various ways. We pass exams, we become a teacher, we fall in love, and so forth. In all these instances, it is we who constitute our existence with action. It looks like life is happening to us, but actually, we are doing things, we are doing something extraordinary to make it happen. So, notice these aspects. In anxiety, however, we don't constitute ourselves, right? We are highly anxious and we stop taking action and we stay still to the point of even depression. In a sense, one is unable to exist, which is equivalent to death. You just don't take action. Probably you switch on the television and to um, watch Netflix, you binge watch that, or you scroll on social media nonstop and before you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours have passed because you're trying to confront. You're stopping yourself from confronting that anxiety, and death turns out to be the same experience as anxiety because you don't take action. You just go through it. And it's very common. It's not unusual. I wanted to share some stats here. So 1 out of 14 people around the world have anxiety disorder. So we are not unique in that. Anxiety disorders are more prevalent in women than men around the world. So it's very important to notice that, especially if you have teams that are comprised of men and women, more important to notice that part, that women experience anxiety more than men. There are some different types of anxiety disorder. So you have generalized anxiety disorder, health anxiety, OCD is a kind of anxiety disorder, panic attacks and panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. If you have witnessed something or if you have experienced something, it may not be something major, even a small thing, as in for young children, if a kid in the class threw something at another child, that second child could have trauma from that, could experience disorder from that small incident. And every time she or he comes across another kid which has, who tries to come closer to that child may experience anxiety. Social anxiety disorder, right? I don't want to be in social media. I'm sure most of you have seen that series Adolescence in Netflix, where you saw how the anxiety built up to such a state that the child reacts in a manner which is not acceptable in social norms. And then there are, of course, specific phobia. So these are some of the anxiety disorders, which I'll not delve into in depth, but happy to have those conversations at a later stage with you if if you're interested. So thus far, I've scared the living daylights of you. Let us now get into the positive. How do we cope with the dysfunctional anxiety? One is a philosophical understanding of its existence. Anxiety cannot be eradicated. We can only manage it. It will keep transitioning from one state to the other. Initially, possibly as a young student, it was about studies. Then it was about getting a job. Then probably getting married or not able to find a suitable partner or not getting married. Then it was probably your first child, your second child, no children. Then their piano classes, sports, then their marriage, our own health, death, anxiety, and so forth. So there are a wide range of things throughout life you experience that, right? Suffering will be there, but how much do we suffer completely depends on us. There will be death, but we create fundamental projects that helps us go through it, right? And whether we are 50, 60, 70, or 90, we do not brood over death. It will come, right? We are on with our projects and within the limitations. And we need to have meaningful projects or purpose to life. Once we find the purpose, you go along with that. You don't keep thinking about tomorrow, right? You work in the present moment. The other one is coping mechanism through cognitive reappraisal. So you reframe the situation. It's altering one's thoughts in order to alter one's emotional state and behavior. Let me give you an example. Say you walked into a room and a man takes a glass of water and throws on your face. Your reaction would be to probably pull out two of his front teeth. Now, there's another scenario, right? You walk into a room and a small child, a 2-year-old child, throws water in your face, right? And it made you wet in both the circumstances, both the situations. But probably in the second instance, you'll probably laugh it off with the child because you realize the child was being playful about it. Now, all these pranks that we allow upon ourselves and we laugh alongside that is us reappraising the situation in our head or reframing that message, right? And this is known as cognitive reappraisal, and that is a coping mechanism. So in anxiety, we do cognitive reappraisal, and we do not view things as catastrophic. And once we change the messaging in our head, sometimes things happen which is out of our control. We can either keep worrying about it and mulling over those past instances. It could be something really life-changing for you. Or you accept the fact that it has happened, change the framing in your mind, and move forward from that. Right? So that's another coping mechanism. Coping through invoking agency. That is, I take the ownership of it. I am the agent. So to alleviate the anxiety, what you could do is you can subcontract it to a higher power. So the higher power is, you say, oh God, or whoever you believe in, please let me have a great day. Let me not go through this anxiety. Can you remove this from my life? I don't want these situations. But you know that the higher power has already granted you with the highest power, our prefrontal cortex, our brain, right? That must take command of our life through coherent, authentic, and courageous actions. We do not usually want to take those actions as it exposes us to anxiety. But if you are able to face this yourself and you take actions, then that gives you the agency to it. The other one is coping through decatastrophizing. So let me give you an example over here. A young man goes to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and he says, I have a fear of heights. So the therapist asks him, where is this fear? So the man says, it's in my gut. So he asks, how big is this fear? The man says, it's huge. What color is the fear? It's black, and so forth. The therapist then tells, meet me this weekend at the bridge in the town to do bungee jumping. And the young guy says, are you crazy? I have fear of heights. I can't come for that. And the therapist asks him, can you explain to me what is this fear? What will happen if you jump from the bridge? The man says, I'll fall down. The cord will come off or break. The therapist then asks him, then what? I could hit the water and injure myself. The therapist says, then what? I could be hospitalized or disabled. I could even die, right? And the therapist says, okay, let's do one thing. Come on Sunday to the bridge and we'll take the next step from there. There are no compulsions, okay? Sunday arrives and the man shows the courage and he turns up. The therapist takes him to a room where there's a screen, and the screen shows how many jumps have taken place from there, how many accidents have happened. So it shows that 0 accidents, 1,450 jumps have taken place, shows the material that's used in the cord, how strong it is, and what are the safety mechanisms that are there. And it also shows probably a clip of James Bond in the GoldenEye bungee jumping from the dam in Switzerland. The man looks at the therapist and the therapist takes him to the bridge where 100 people are standing in the queue in front of him. As each person jumps and does it, the anxiety level grows in the young person because, as you're getting closer to the point where you have to jump. When he reaches the front, the helpers out there tells him that he doesn't have to worry. There's a safety net. There are boats over there. There's a helicopter hanging around should anything happen to take him immediately. So the man brings all his courage to the fore and he jumps off the bridge. And then he comes back to meet the therapist. So the therapist asks him, what happened? And the man says it was incredible. It was a great experience. And therapist asks, do you have the fear of this? And the man says, no. The therapist asks, what happened? And he says, it has no color. The fear has gone now. And that is that is a message, right? Your experience wasn't, as in the fear you had wasn't substantive. And that is what the experience showed, right? It doesn't reside in the body like a thing. Fear and anxiety is a relationship that we establish with our environment. Initially, the man established the relationship as the cord will break, I will fall, I will die. Now the relationship he established was free fall, thrill, excitement. When he altered the relationship, and the worldview, the fear went away. And that's what the messaging is for us. We need to learn to decatastrophize a situation. We need to alter the messaging in our mind. These are simple concepts. It's easy to say, but it comes with practice. So every time you're confronted with a situation that causes anxiety, think about a similar situation in the past, which you have overcome, and you're still alive, and kicking, right? So use that as an example to change the messaging in your head about this current situation and reframe the message in your mind. I'll give it a miss, this one. So while I've enumerated the various ways to cope with dysfunctionality of anxiety, anxiety also has a beautiful stabilizing effect. Rather than considering it is an enemy that needs to be kicked, accept that it is there, and you'll find that there are positive outcomes of anxiety. People develop symptoms to cope with anxiety, compulsion, depression, hallucination. These are all the various coping mechanisms, right? And when they cannot see the possibility of something positive, they choose the safety of the familiar to remain in the safe space and avoid risky, right? Normal surviving mechanism. Anxiety helps us ward off threat. So we will not put a hand in the fire, right? Because you know that you will get burnt. So it helps us prepare ourselves. You always face anxiety before exams, or if there's a road full of traffic, you're not going to cross the road because that anxiety helps you survive and step away from that. It is also an alerting or an awakening system. It is through anxiety that we come to ask the larger question: am I living the life that I want to be living? When everything is hunky-dory, when the job is going well, health is fine, we are in seamless coping. But the moment there is a change in the familiarity, someone dies, you lose your job, then we ask a larger existential question: what am I doing with my life? Right? And that questioning itself helps you to go beyond regular day-to-day life. You try to find a purpose in your life, and you move beyond the regular existence. Anxiety awakens this inner potentiality in us. It tells us that you can do what you want, into a restless self-searching. So anxiety is not working against us. It is working for us. It helps us manage ourselves, and it is a great alerter. It is through anxiety that one understands something dreadful is lurking and that one ought to take some corrective actions. Anxiety is the great enabler. So the moment you think of it in that way, you 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 do not give anxiety the power to control you. Rather, you control it, and you're able to manage it. This is what I wanted to share. So this is it's a lot of content, and I know I've gone beyond the 1 hour that have been allocated, but we do have a one-day program in Headstride known as the Anxious Being, which delineates anxiety in huge depth. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. But before I hand back to Kevin, just a small exercise about mindful breathing. So if you can sit on your chair with your back away from the backrest, feet flat on the floor, you can place your hands on your thighs. Just observe your breath. So, if you are tense or anxious or angry, your breath is usually short and shallow. It's quite, it is probably from your chest. Your breath is not deep. It's fast when you're excited. You're excited about something that's going to happen. You find that you're breathing very fast. And when you're happy, you find that the breath is slow and full, quite calming at that point. And if you're afraid, you actually hold your breath. You don't breathe when you're scared of something. So if you have a fear of driving the car, when you come to a complex roundabout, you find that you're holding your breath. Your hands are holding onto the wheel of the car, as in the driving wheel, strongly. But the breath is always there with you, right? But we sometimes are not in touch with our breathing. It's just there, forgotten. So one of the things that we do to manage anxiety is to practice mindfulness. And you can do this. It's a short 5-minute scanning your body. And you can do this 3 or 4 times a day. So maybe midday, maybe after your lunch, maybe after your tea in the evening, once you reach home once more, or before you sleep. As many times as you need, you can do, or even if you do it once, that's good enough. They say the more busy you are in life, the more prone to stress and anxiety you are, the more number of times you do this. Okay, let's try this exercise. So settle into a comfortable sitting position, feet flat on the floor, legs are uncrossed, and back is straight, slightly away from the back of the chair so that your spine is self-supporting. Now gently close your eyes. Bring your awareness to the physical sensations by focusing your attention on the sensations of touch and pressure in your body where it makes contact with the chair and the floor. Spend a few seconds exploring these sensations. Bring your attention to the movement of your abdominal walls as you breathe. So as you inhale, feel the abdominal walls rise out. And as you exhale, feel the abdominal walls rise, go back in. Focus your awareness on the sensations of slight stretching as the abdominal walls rises with each in-breath, and on the sensations of slight deflation as the abdominal wall falls back with each out-breath. Notice the slight pauses between one in-breath and following out-breath, and between one out-breath and the following in-breath. Keep breathing. Soon you'll find your mind is wandering away from the focus on your breath to thoughts, to planning, to daydreams. It's just drifting. That's perfectly okay. That's what human minds do. When you notice that the mind has wandered and is not on your breath, gently congratulate yourself and bring it back to your breath. Gently escort the awareness to the ongoing in-breath and out-breath. Bring a quality of kindness to yourself. Keep breathing. Perhaps see the repeated wanderings of the mind as opportunities to bring patience and gentle curiosity to your experience. Whenever you're ready, come back into the room and gently open the eyes. We can do this practice to just relax our tense muscles, just taking a small break, especially if you're feeling anxious about something, just to connect with your breath. The busier we are, the more such moments we need to refresh ourselves. These are my details. If you need to connect with me, feel free to do that. And with that, I will hand back to Kevin.